Hi, Uncivilized Vitality book review, and today we're going to talk about this book, which is The Oldest Cure in the World, Adventures in the Art and Science of Fasting by Steve Hendricks. And I'm going to rearrange the camera and talk to you about this a little bit. I read through this book yesterday, and it is hot garbage. So stay tuned. Okay, so why did I say this book was hot garbage? It's mostly hot garbage. So usually I recommend books you should read. I'm going to recommend a book today to avoid. When I first picked this up, I thought this would be great. I love to read books about fasting, the history of fasting, fasting in different cultures and such. And I thought, oh, this would be a good one. This was written just a couple years ago, 2022. And it is not good. The fasting information... Let me just throw that out of the way. Fasting information in there was pretty good. Mentioned a lot of things, though as I read through it, it was curious that he omitted a couple of more recent experts or sources of fasting, like Dr. Jason Fung. Jason Fung is a nephrologist who I would say is probably your best resource for intermittent and extended fasting right now. So the thing I didn't like about the book was not the fasting information, although he did tend to selectively choose which fasting sources he went on about. He talked about Dr. Shelton a lot, who's a chiropractor from 100 years ago. And if you've read Shelton's books or tracked those down, more quasi-mystical aspects of fasting, whereas Jason Fung will just give you the biochemistry behind it. That's why I like him the best. He talked about Upton Sinclair's book, The Fasting Cure. Most people know Upton Sinclair from the Jungle, the meatpacking industry expose, I think in the 30s or 20s. Talked about how gross our food is prepared in those CAFOs or concentrated animal feeding operations. But Upton Sinclair also wrote a book called The Fasting Cure. One of the things that this author does in the book is constantly contradict himself, saying that he has numerous health problems. He's got skin issues and this weight that kind of creeps back up. And when he says weight creeping back up, he was fasting to lose weight at 146 pounds. He's 5'9", and he was trying to get down to 130. And then toward the end of the book, later fastings, he's proud of the fact he's down to 119. An adult male that's 5'9" and 50 years old should not weigh 119 pounds. That's a little too lean. He also has these skin issues and these digestive complaints that don't seem to leave him, and some other semi-psychological issues. He details all of this in the book, and he goes along. And the idea, when I first started reading, was, okay, he's going to walk us through how fasting helped him. But he talks about how fasting is okay, but what you really need to do is avoid meat and salt and sugar and oil and processed foods. And I agree with all that, except the meat and the salt, obviously. Uncivilized Vitality doesn't agree with that. I'll go through it in a minute. But basically, the whole book was it got to be less and less subtle as it went. And by the end, it was very blatantly just a propaganda or a shill for veganism. And Uncivilized Vitality does not promote veganism at all. So we're going to talk about that. And I'm going to do it in a way I hope won't offend or hurt too many people's little feelings, but we're going to do it anyway. So in Uncivilized Vitality, in my book, I give 3 pieces of nutrition advice. And you got to understand that nutrition is a very difficult science, and everybody's got culturally informed and biologically demanded eating habits. So I'll get this out of the way up front. 1, human beings are omnivorous. There is no evidence for an exclusively vegetarian society at any point in history that was successful for any length of time. That's because we need certain things that you only get from animal products. And there are things we can get from plants. Like if you're willing to put in the work and make the sacrifices to take an ethical stand against maybe harvesting animals for eating, that's fine. But it is not necessarily a healthier style of diet than eating meat. There's also a lot of conflating that goes on in this book, especially a lot of conflation. He would say avoid salts, oils, and sugars. You can't lump salt, oil, and sugar together. Obviously avoid oil. Any plant oils or polyunsaturated fatty acids are pro-inflammatory. Avoid sugar, obviously, but salt is a necessary component of being alive. We crave salt, so we have to have salt. So he would conflate those together. He would also say things like avoid meat, but when he says meat, he does like a lot of intentionally misleading anti-meat eating advocates do when they'll say, well, meat, they're talking about bologna and processed sausages and McDonald's fast food hamburgers. That's not meat. Ethically raised, organically grass-fed and finished beef and wild game, free-range eggs, wild-caught, pole-caught fish, those things that you hunt and kill or catch or fish yourself. That's meat, right? A pig that's been grazed on a CAFO, a concentrated animal feeding operation, CAFO, that's not the same as a free-range hog from someone like Joe Saladin. You check him out on Polyface Farms, right? Check that out. That's real meat. That's what we mean when pro-meat eaters such as myself say eating meat. I don't mean bologna. Eat real meat. So without conflating that, almost every culture in the world has always existed eating meat. In Uncivilized Vitality, the stance I take is nature knows best. And throughout all of history, people have subsisted on animal products when they can get them. They can live on plants, right? But ultimately, animal products provide more complete proteins and more sources of fat, especially the anti-inflammatory and pro-brain building fats that you need, okay, that you can't get from a strictly plant-based diet. And then you can leave comments below if you want to, and we can argue it, although I probably won't respond to it. I mean, it is what it is. My stance is that animals are food and plants are medicine. And that's just a broad kind of a statement that can get nuanced out. The other bit of logic I use to come to this idea is that if you were to be dropped anywhere in the world and you had to find something to eat, depending on your location in the world, the time of season, and your knowledge of local plants, it would really be hit or miss whether you ate a healthful, nourishing mushroom or plant, or a plant, berry, root mushroom that would kill you instantly due to toxins. That's a crapshoot. That's 50-50 at best. However, dropped anywhere in the world, if you were to kill a mammal, a reptile, a fish, or some kind of bird, you stand a better than 9 out of 10 chance of being able to get nourishment from that creature, right? So by default, I say animals are food, plants are medicine, right? Formulating my nutrition advice on Uncivilized Vitality is a little more complex than that, but it's simply this: real food is vital. And of course, unpack that in the book, meaning pertaining to life, real food. If you can't catch it, kill it, pick it, hunt it, fish it, gather it, then it's not real food. If it's got more than 2 or 3 ingredients in a package, it's not real food. A bag of frozen blueberries should say blueberries. That's it, blueberries. It shouldn't have a paragraph of chemical names that you can't pronounce. So I'm talking about real food that's not a food product. So that's my first bit of advice, and I don't think anyone could argue with that. Eating real foods directly from reputable sources is much better than eating Cheetos and, no offense, Christine, Cheeto. I don't want to say that you can't eat them. Or like, the fabled Pop-Tart bush I say doesn't exist. Although Shane did find those Pop-Tarts one time in the woods, and that was just destroyed my whole argument. But notwithstanding, real food is vital. The second thing you should do is eat on purpose, right? Be purposeful about your eating. Research the things you're eating. Take time out to prepare your meals. Control your meal times. Control how much you eat. Control when you eat, right? Eat on purpose. Don't eat just because you're hungry and your appetites, which are psychologically provoked by marketers and people selling you food to make money. Don't be provoked like that. Eat on purpose. Right? And then the third bit, which led me to this book review, is occasionally do not eat. Right? So this forms the basis of all of the nutrition advice in the Uncivilized Vitality program. Of course, we unpack this in the book, and there's a lot of nuance to it, but it's very simple. Only eat real foods, pay attention to how you're eating, what you're eating, when you're eating, and occasionally don't eat, or fasting, right? Fasting is really the world's oldest cure. Fasting of some form or another, or abstinence from food, has been found in all cultures throughout all of recorded history, and probably, we have to say probably because we don't have it before that, probably prehistorically too. And it makes sense when you think about a time before restaurants and grocery stores. You have to procure your own food. You have to gather it, find it, trap it, hunt it, fish it, kill it. That takes time. And some days you might not be lucky enough to get something. So you're going to have to be, as an organism, able to go longer periods without food. That's probably our default, is a feast and famine sort of situation. Our biochemistry holds this out. When you study the biochemistry and the physiology of the human being, we're designed to be discrete eaters. We can eat, and then we go a long period of time without eating. There are great videos by Dr. Fung explaining how fasting works, but in essence, it is fed versus fasted. Those are the two, call them metabolic states that you can be in. And what is metabolism? Metabolism is the sum total of all of the physiological and chemical processes that occur in your body while you're alive. So sometimes I hate when I get on that when people say, oh, I have a fast metabolism or a slow metabolism. It doesn't really work like that. You're applying terms that don't really apply to metabolism, but you're either in two states, either fed or fasted. After you eat, you've got anywhere from 6 to 8 hours when you're fed, after you've eaten that meal, before your body stops breaking the food down. It's an energy intensive process to break food down and store it as refill your liver and your muscles with your glycogen, feed your brain and your red blood cells with that glucose, store the rest of it as fat. That takes time. About 6 to 8 hours after you've eaten a meal. Then you enter the fasted period where you start to go about the rest of your business, because we don't live to eat, right? We eat to live, or we should. You go about the rest of your business, making copies of yourself, searching for mates to make copies of yourself, avoiding predators, building shelter, looking around, finding and planning what you're going to eat next, right? These things take time. And while you're doing that, your body's in the fasted state, or the repair phase of metabolism. When you're looking around for rogue cells or worn out cells. And so when you're doing your growth, when you're growing, growth hormone and IGF-1 and insulin and other hormones are being pro-growth and repair. The biggest part of fasting is a process called autophagy, right? This means eating of the self. When you're fasting in that metabolic phase, your body will scour and clean up old cells or old organelles or worn out bits of cellular membrane or such. And, oh, the phone's ringing. And start to make some repairs so you can live healthier and live a little longer than you normally would, because you're feeding all the time. Right? Check out Dr. Fung's work, check out fasting in general, and you see that some of the most encouraging studies that have done on fasting are, obviously they're animal studies. We haven't done them on people yet. We just have anecdotal evidence for that, although that is helpful, that you can increase lifespan a little bit. They did some studies with rats as late as the 1980s. They did some studies with rats, and they fed them every other day, and were able to get those rats to live like to the equivalent age of what would have been 143 years old. So like 80% longer than they normally would live. The difference there in those studies is that a day for a rat would be like a 2-week fast or a continual fast for a human. So it's not like alternate day fasting would get the same results and increase your life by 30 years. There's also a difference between dieting or calorie restriction and fasting. So if you only restrict your calories coming in each day, you stay in a fed state, but a very low fed state. So you're not getting the energy you need, but you're not able to flip over into your fasted state and burn stored fats for energy either. So you just sort of slowly break down and starve. Plus, it's very hard to do. When you switch off and stop eating completely, it's a different physiological state or processes that take place that are much different than just reduced calorie intake. Okay, they are not the same. So there's a mistake sometimes, like in this book, he went to Germany and detailed when he stayed at the spa, this fasting spa in Germany, but they didn't fast. They ate a little bit of fruit each day. They took bone broth and other broths and soups each day. That's not fasting. That's just a calorie restricted diet. Plus they did all kinds of odd things, enemas and other things. It's perfectly natural to fast and be in a fasted state. We're designed or have evolved, whatever you believe, to do that. It's normal. So I promote that. A great way to keep track of your nutrition is to occasionally not eat. I suggest, and most of the studies will concur, that every rather otherwise healthy adult should be able to do up to a 24-hour fast. You're going to get different changes between, let's say, 8 hours, 10 hours after you've stopped eating, so that you would get the other 14 hours in a day-long cycle. You would be in the fasted state. As long as you can stay in a fasted state longer than a fed state, you'll be doing good, making repairs, and not wearing your body out processing food. But besides that 10 to 12 hour range, getting a 24-hour range, must be some sort of physiological switch in your body, because there are different changes that take place after 24 hours. So from 24 to 72, there's a whole host of changes that take place there, including increased autophagy. It increases by like 600% after 24 to 72 hours. There are more changes that happen after what I would call an extended fast, anything past 3 days, so 3 to 5, 5 to 10, and then 10 onward. And yes, people do routinely do water-only fasts for greater than 2, 3, 4 weeks. Those would have to be undertaken with direct supervision, because there's a lot of nuance to that, a lot of things to watch out for, whether different things that will happen. Is that the sign of a healing crisis, a process, or is that a reason to call the fast off? Most people can handle a 24-hour fast, maybe even up to 3 days, but I'm not saying that officially here on the video. 24 hours. Several ways to do that easily. And the thing is, if it gets too much, you can always just eat something and back out. After you've gone 72 hours, the key part of fasting is the refeed period, is coming back in and turning that digestive system on after it's been on pause or not going for quite a while. So up to 72. So I say 24 hours. The easiest way to do that is to get up, eat your breakfast, eat your lunch, stop eating, let's say 2 p.m. And then just do not eat again until 2 p.m. the next day. So one day you eat breakfast and lunch, skip dinner, go to bed, get up, skip breakfast, then have a late lunch or a dinner, and you've had 24 hours, minus this 6-hour period after that last meal called the postprandial period. You get about, in that 24-hour fast, you're going to spend about 18 of those hours fasting. So that's pretty good, all right? That gives your body plenty of chance to rest, plenty of chance to do other things besides just constantly digesting, absorbing, and utilizing foodstuffs. Most people that aren't familiar with physiology or biochemistry don't realize how energy intensive food eating is, right? There are some foods that can almost be considered negative caloric energy. Like if you were to eat just lunch of like 7 or 8 stalks of celery. I like celery. I like to crunch on it, chew on it. But celery, by the time you've fired up the digestive system and gotten those 6 stalks of celery through you, if you could measure out precisely the energy that you got from the celery and the energy it took to digest the celery and pass it through your system, you're actually going to have a net loss in energy. That's why celery is sometimes recommended as diet food. I think celery is good for carrying your peanut or almond butter with little raisins on it, ants on a log, or cream cheese. Other than that, celery is just for crunching. It's not really super helpful. So just on our fasting advice, I'm a very big proponent of intermittent fasting and what we'd say short extended fasting, somewhere between 24 and 72 hours. And when I say fast, I mean it in the strictest sense, water only, okay? You need to rest. There are going to be things you go through. You're going to have learn the difference between hunger and appetite. You're going to have lethargy, especially that second day if you go past 24 hours. What's going to happen is on, you call it day 2, you're going to feel really tired and cranky when you get up. Because when you've stopped through this postprandial period, now your body, in the first bit of the fasting, the next 12 hours or so, the rest of that first day, you'll just burn through your glycogen, your stored energy in your muscles and your liver. You've only got about a day of that. Right? If you're exercising and doing other things, you'll run through your glycogen stores even faster. Once you've gotten through your glycogen, by day 2, you're going to have to trip over into lipolysis and start freeing up some of those stored fats, right, around your stomach, or the visceral fat around under your skin, right, subcutaneous fat. You'll start freeing that up. Your liver will start to do some conversions to put it into a form from the triglyceride carry form into biochemical units you can use for energy. Get into the TCA and keep going with that. It'll also produce, as a byproduct, things called ketones, right? Ketones are produced, the byproduct of breaking down fatty acids for energy. Ketones, acetoacetone, hydroxybutyrate, is it beta hydroxybutyrate, and acetone, right? Those, like nail polish remover, those are ketones. It turns out that your system can run on ketones actually more efficiently and more energy per gram than it does off of glucose, right? With couple of exceptions. Obviously, red blood cells are only ready to run on glucose. They don't use ketones to do their little things they do inside, but they don't have nuclei and they don't live but 4 months anyway. So skip that. Your skeletal muscles prefer ketones. Your heart muscle can run on ketones. Your brain can run on ketones, with some exception. It needs at least a little bit of glucose. Glucose is mainly a brain fuel. Your brain absorbs most of your glucose. Fortunately, your liver, while producing ketones as energy, as a byproduct of turning some of that fat into glucose for your brain. It's not enough to run your whole body on, which is why we run on the ketones when we're burning fat. And our brain gets what little bit of glucose we have produced from converting fat and some amino acids into glucose. Our brain gets that, so we can run. But until we kick over into that switch and we start doing that fat conversion into glucose for the brain and ketones, we're going to be a little foggy headed and a little weak and a little cranky. That's usually what happens on days 2 and 3. So from 48 to 72. A water only fast up to 72 hours, you'll feel a sense of renewed energy, clear headedness, a little bit of euphoria, and you'll get up and be able to get past that little switch. This gets easier with more fasting. The more often you do these little fasts, the easier you'll be able to make that metabolic switch, and the less that time of brain fog, irritability, and weakness or lethargy will come in. You'll be able to get past that quick because your body's used to switching over to fat burning. I suggest people practice intermittent fasting. Try to get a 24-hour fast once a week, and then maybe once a month do a 72-hour fast. Once a season, at least a 72-hour to 5-day fast. The longest water-only fast I've done personally is 10 days. I've often thought about doing longer, but and I feel great when I'm doing the fasts. I just get bored, honestly, as I like to eat. So, and again, I do that with supervision. Or planning. I've been doing that for a long time, so you shouldn't do that, YouTube watchers. But a 24-hour fast, you can handle that. And if you're not willing to fast for 24 hours, you should look for 2/3 of your day fasted. You can do that in what's called an 8-16 ratio. So this 8 would indicate the number of hours a day that you use as a feeding window, and you can do that at different times. Studies do seem to indicate that earlier the better because of our diurnal feeding patterns, but I don't want to get into that too much. And then 16 hours a day, you fast. So basically you would eat from, say, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., right? So then you've stopped taking in food, say, at 4 p.m., which means you're out of that fed state by 10 p.m., and then from 10 p.m. till 8 a.m. the next day, you're going to live on your stored glycogen. Okay? Or burn a little bit of fat because you've only got about 6 to 8 hours of stored glycogen. So from 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. the next day, 10 p.m. you go to sleep, You're out of that, you're burning glycogen. You probably burn enough glycogen to get through till about 6 in the morning. And then for 2 hours, you're gonna end up burning pure fat. So you're just nibbling away at your stored fat. If you don't replace it by overeating during that feeding window, which can be tough to do, then each day you'll just be chipping away at a little stored fat. And over a couple of months of following that, you'll be down with the normal amount of healthy weight loss or any stored fat. You can get down pretty quick. Extended fasting, past the intermittent, where you go 24 hours and farther out, you will see some rapid weight loss, but it's almost always water and the 3 or 4 pounds of food undigested that's being processed through you at any time after that's been defecated out. Lots of water loss, lots of contraction of the tissues because of the water loss. And you're going to also lose a lot of the bacteria in your biome. The bacteria in your gut account for about 4% of your body weight. So if I'm not feeding them, they die off, I lose a lot of them. So at 200 pounds, 210 pounds, if I did a 72-hour fast, I will easily drop 12 pounds in 3 days. No problem. However, of that 12 pounds, 4 pounds of that is probably bacteria. Another 2 pounds is the digestive food that's got to process all the way through when I stopped eating. And then I'll lose probably another 5 pounds of water. So of the 12 pounds of weight I would drop, I'd only lose half to 1 pound of fat in that 3 days. So it's not a cure-all for weight loss. The real point of fasting, occasionally not eating, is to give your body time to do repairs, right? To cut down on inflammation, to help you live a little bit longer so you can get into your 50s and your joints don't ache. You're not overly tired. You don't have a bunch of nagging little problems that have come from a lifetime of non-stop feeding. Okay. All right, well, I didn't mean to go into the fasting a little bit. I just wanted to trash on that book a little bit. Terrible book. And of course, this is just my personal opinion, but I would recommend, you know what, maybe you can check this book out from the library or borrow this book. This is one of those few times I'm going to say it. I would have rather I borrowed this book instead of purchased. But I do buy books because I go through them and I make lots of little notes in the margins to myself. You know, I underline. There's a couple places, like right there, I wrote, ha, complete bullshit. And then I wrote a couple other little things. Just my notes because I'm funny. This is pretty interesting. Interesting. Wrote a couple things there, but like I said, this is more of a pro-veganism book. And be a vegan or vegetarian if you want to. Just being right up front, my stance is that human beings are supposed to eat all the foods available. We get things from plants and animals. I like to think of animals as my main food source because I can eat them anywhere, and I don't know about plants. That's very risky. And there are lots of things to be said for eating plants. I also don't necessarily avoid fruits and salads and vegetables. But if I have my choice between a salad and a steak, I'm going to eat the steak. I've been doing that most of my life. I just feel better that way. And it's part of the Uncivilized Vitality program. So real food is vital. Eat on purpose and occasionally don't eat. Try a small fast. Fasting is great for you. That book notwithstanding. You want to learn more about fasting? Check out the free YouTube videos. Dr. Jason Fung, he's a nephrologist. He's also written several books about fasting. He explains it very well, better than I am explaining it, probably, for sure. Great way to get started on intermittent fasting. Also, we have another book review on a book called Fast Like a Girl, because women have different metabolic parameters they have to, especially during the reproductive years, that they have to attend to. So read that book, Fast Like a Girl, and help you bring in more of the fasting that can correspond with your menstrual cycle, so you get the most out of that fasting period. All right, that's it. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you've read that book, if you like that book, seriously, tell me why. I don't understand. Plus, there was no new information in that fasting book. You can get, he basically read a bunch of fasting books, repeated their information, added nothing new to it, and then sort of backhanded panned on it all the way, while not seeming to take his own advice. He damned the medical system for not recognizing fasting as a possible cure, while he steadfastly refuses to admit that it's maybe because he's not getting all the nutrients he needs in his diet that could fix those problems. Anyway, if you like that book, leave a comment below. That's enough of my rambling. I got to get back upstairs, get some work done. The channel is up to almost 6,500 subscribers now, so we're doing really well. So thanks for that. If you could get somebody to find somebody you need to talk to about nutrition and send them this video, let's get the channel shared out a bit more. Buy me a coffee. We're still doing that promotion, so I'll put the Rendell will somehow put the link up here. I don't know how to do it. And then like, share, subscribe, and that's it.